I lived in Merida for a year and a half before moving to San Cris. I've now been in San Cris almost a year. And when I went back to Merida, I was quite surprised that I was as charmed as I was in visiting a place again. But we're gonna do a pro-con list just to be logical about whether I should actually move back to Merida or if staying in San Cris is the right thing to do, or perhaps option number 3, find a new city. Number 1, we're just gonna jump right into it. There are no shootings in Merida. Okay, so I do wanna clarify, probably a year and a half to 2 years ago, there actually was a shooting in Merida. There was a drive-by shooting in Las Americas. It is the only gun-related incident that I'm aware of, although I will tell you, obviously, I do not know everything that happens in Merida. But the difference between that scenario and the scenarios, plural, that happen here in San Cris is in Merida, it was, from what I understand, a very targeted shooting. Basically meaning there was a hit, like they were trying to kill and successfully killed a very particular individual that they wanted to know. I don't know who they are. I don't know why they wanted to kill this, like all of that details I'm not aware of. I just know when that shooting happened, it was not a matter of everyone going, oh no, this could have happened to me. No. This was a very isolated and specific event that happened in Merida. Now, there's also been other violent scenarios in Merida. The ones at least that I heard about tend to be very kind of targeted as opposed to a mass shooting scenario. Now, here in San Cris, I won't say they happen very often, but moments of unrest happen, we'll say like 5 times in the last year that I've lived here. But I also want to clarify that when I say shootings and mass shootings in San Cris, it's a little misleading because in the US, when we say mass shootings, we're talking about like Uvalde. We're talking about a crazy person who enters a public space and literally starts shooting anyone and everyone. That's usually what we mean by a mass shooting in the US. Here in San Cris, what we kind of mean is that there was a mass amount of people, like a group of people who came into town, a certain portion of the town, with weapons, guns and rifles and all of that jazz, right? So they come heavily armed, they're absolutely terrifying to see, but their intention is not to kill as many people as they possibly can. Their intention is not to harm as many people as they possibly can. Whereas in the US, that's kind of, I feel like, the intent for a lot of these mass shootings. Here, their intent is to scare a lot of people. Their intention is to get attention. We're not talking about in-your-face shooting. We're literally talking about people who shoot in the air to grab your attention, to scare you. Like that's kind of the style, right? Same for the blockades that happen here in San Cris and Chiapas. It is a group of people, often armed, who really just want your money. And so will they shoot the firearm? Absolutely, but not at you, not in your face, not to kill you. Now, I say this, should you ever be in this type of situation, don't think to yourself that they won't kill you if the proper circumstances arise. So I kind of lean towards just give them what they're asking for. But my point is that they don't go out of their way to just willy-nilly take lives. Okay, so this type of thing, the largest event of my time here at least, has happened when I recently returned to San Cris, but we've probably had, I would say 3 maybe incidents of shootings and kind of unrest happening here in San Cris. They last really just for the day, and I say the day, we're talking possibly 7 hours, etc. But my point is, unrest happens here in San Cris. It is scary, and there are casualties. Because when you shoot a bullet in the air, it has to land somewhere. And so it is absolutely possible, and in the most recent incident, there was at least 1 death. Not because that person did anything wrong, not because they fought or had any kind of interaction with this group that came, but because the bullet had to land somewhere and it landed on this young man and therefore he passed. So I don't know what I would call it aside from a shooting, but it's, again, the intent of the shooting is distinctly different. However, lives are lost, and in Merida, like that just never happens. Like ever. I've heard of rare instances of muggings, of house break-ins, etc. Related, crazy people walking around San Cris is absolutely a thing. People who are high, people who are not in their right minds, walking around town, screaming and hollering, and just causing, again, that little bit of unrest. That is especially relevant when we start thinking about my letting Alex walk around the city by himself. He's 12, and so he wants more of that freedom. Well, when I see crazy people, those moments make me as a mother, like, it does make me much more protective of where Alex is allowed to go, especially without me. In Merida, yeah, I don't see the crazy people. So if he can tolerate the heat of Merida, I would be more okay with Alex walking around there. Another huge pro of Merida is it's a more bustling community. There's more opportunity to hang out with other kids and other people. It's a more extroverted lifestyle. I feel like there's a lot of kind of community events. And so the introvert in me is not necessarily a huge fan of it, but it is those extroverted moments, those community involvement moments that allow you to meet particular friends. And then you can choose your more one-on-one, more introverted style meetups. So yeah, Merida provides that opportunity, which San Cris, especially from a family perspective, is a little harder to do. Amenities. Merida has so many amenities, so many,
I hired a chef to prepare our meals for an entire week, lunch and dinner.
Merida is a city of 1 million people compared to the 200,000 here in San Cris. And so you've just got deliveries of absolutely everything. You want to borrow a washing machine just for the day? That's a thing people do in Merida. They'll just bring you a washing machine for you to wash your laundry for the day and then take it away at the end of the day. Like you can do that in Merida.
He picks it up. Cost me about $5. How cool is that?
I'm not saying you can't do that here so much as it's not readily available. It's not part of the infrastructure here for those amenities. Speaking of infrastructure, internet is distinctly better in Merida compared to here. Nowhere is perfect, but yeah, it's stronger, it's better. Braces. You will notice that Alex and I have yet to get braces here in San Cris. Now, I will say you can get braces here in San Cris. I don't know anyone who has, which is part of the dilemma. It's part of my hesitancy in getting braces. Again, one, braces are just not fun, like honestly. But two, I don't have anyone to give me personal recommendations for braces. I have had personal recommendations for dentists in general, but just not for braces. Yeah, there's a part of me that's been waiting this entire year, not getting either of us braces because I'm waiting on recommendations. And I think ultimately, if we choose to stay in San Cris, we're just gonna have to bite the bullet. We're just gonna have to pick one and go, yeah, let's just do it and see what happens. Whereas in Merida, there are not only, of course, my favorite dentist who did our braces, but they have a handful. They have many. Because of the plethora of people that live there, there's just a lot of people to give you recommendations on who the best people are for braces, for dentists, for hospitals, for doctor visits, etc. Like, it's not just one. You have so many more options in Merida than you do here in San Cris. Like, it's city living, big city living versus small town living. Things for kids to do. And I'm not a huge activity person necessarily, but Merida, they have so many playgrounds, both kind of new and modern, as well as the more traditional kind of metal styles. Like, there's just so many spaces for kids to play. There are the malls.
Going to malls.
The jump houses. We recently went to, I forget the name, but it's like the Extreme Park something. That place was free. That was a free place where we got to zip line, where we had this obstacle course thing to do, where, jumping trampoline things. Like, that was an amazing place for kids, and it was free, obviously paid for by tax dollars. That type of amenity we don't have here. Like, we have Convivencia Infantil, which is the best playground they have here in San Cris. It costs 4 pesos, which is pretty nominal, but there's no zip lining there. There's really not things to climb outside of kind of your more normal playground environment. So yeah, like, things that are available to you in Merida for free, like, it's just hard to argue, honestly. It's hard to argue. And again, because it's a city with 1 million people, you can probably do anything you want there. I have friends whose kids are in equestrian classes, like horse riding classes, beach-related activities that you can do there. There are swimming classes that you can take there. There are, of course, language-related classes. There's art-related, and not to say that those classes don't exist here in San Cris. They do, but it's much more transient. It's harder to find a teacher that's here for the long term. So Alex has taken many one-off classes. Having a teacher that stays long enough, literally for the second and definitely for the third class, that's been a challenge. Whereas in Merida, there are actual teachers who have been in business for years teaching their particular topic. So it's a much more, It's a much more established place or established feel when it comes to taking classes. And I know I shouldn't focus on this, but one of the reasons why I came to San Cristobal was to improve my Spanish, which I think I have done. Again, we're nowhere near like fluent or even conversationally strong, but my point is, here in San Cristobal, I have to know Spanish, especially anywhere outside of like a tourist event. And a lot of tourist activities here are only in Spanish. Like, that is a thing. Going back to Merida, I forgot the number of people that just speak English quickly and easily, and like everywhere I went, I would start in Spanish and whoever I was talking to would continue in English. It was so comfortable. Guys, Merida was so comfortable visiting. Now the con of that would be, it'll take that much longer for me to learn Spanish in Merida because you don't have to know Spanish in Merida. Like, you don't. You should, but you don't have to. San Cris, if you want to stay here any length of time, like, you have to learn at a minimum transactional Spanish and then work your way towards conversational. But Merida, Spanish will definitely help you, but not knowing it really won't hurt you that much, especially compared to here. I have more local friends, more Mexican friends in Merida than I do here in San Cris. Now, I've lived in San Cris for a year. I do have several friends that are married to locals and have lived in San Cris for years and years and years that I would consider to be kind of like a local, meaning they've lived here for 17 years. But in terms of being born and raised or from Mexico, of any part of Mexico, one. In Merida, I have many, many, many more. Now, they all speak English. Again, in Merida, you will find locals that speak English, but I have local friends. I have friends that I can call up and be like, hey, this weird thing happened. Is this normal for Mexico? Is this a thing? Or is this an anomaly? Like, I have people I can talk to and ask all those questions for. Here, we're just so diverse here in San Cris, like so diverse. As a generalization, the locals here are a little less friendly than in Merida. And I think it ties in with the fact that it's a pueblo magico. They're so used to seeing, I think, expats that come and go that there's no real reason maybe to make friendships. Whereas in Merida, like, it's known as being super friendly because they are friendly. And last but not least, pro for Merida is the quality of water, like the house water, the water that you wash with, the water that you clean with. We all know that in Mexico, you do not drink the tap water, and that is true there, it's true here. There is an extra level of caution required for dealing with the water here that I never dealt with in Merida. I really never got sick in Merida. Here, we've gotten sick a handful of times, and a lot of my friends get sick here, you know, occasionally, especially at the beginning of rainy season. I feel like a lot of people got really sick. This is a place where the water quality, I think, is a little more questionable than perhaps other parts of Mexico, whereas Merida, like, there are people who comfortably brush their teeth with the water. There are people who, like, just handle the local water more than others, and they don't have trouble. Whereas here, somebody who never brushes their teeth with the water can still get sick just because, yeah, the water quality is not quite where you would want it to be. Yeah, I think those are my major pros for Merida. And so what's the end result? Am I moving to Merida? Am I staying here? Well, first, in the next video, I'm gonna show you this amazing house that Barbie showed me. It literally met all my requirements for a house while being affordable. In the video after that, we're gonna talk about possibly my favorite neighborhood to potentially live in, because I want you to see a little bit more of the charm, of the fascination that I had with Merida when I visited most recently, before letting you know my firm decision. But the fact is, as I start looking at Merida, I'm also a little more excited about moving to other parts of Mexico that I've never lived in. Like, it just reminds me how amazing Mexico is and how many opportunities, how many places there are to visit and to enjoy. And yeah, right now I'm kind of in overload mode when it comes to making these decisions. I can tell you for a fact, though, that Alex is firmly for staying here in San Cris. He loves his friends here, as do I. He is the reason why I slow travel much more than kind of my reasons. So Alex is pro staying in San Cris, whereas I am pretty much always open to the possibility of moving again.